everybody. It's a Sunday afternoon. Please start the clapping, start the cheering, and welcome to the stage, Richard Cobb! How's it going, Glasgow? Good. Elephant in the room, that's a heart scarf. Just going to pop that up there. But I think we should be safe in this territory. Thanks very much for coming, Glasgow. It's amazing. I was quite worried about this. It's the last time I'm doing this show, so this is last year's Edinburgh Fringe show, and I was a bit like, Glasgow, like it's big comedy scene. Quite worried about the performance. I don't want to have the worst performance of the week. So thankfully, Scotland already got that out of the way against Northern Ireland on Tuesday. So free rein to kind of do whatever I can here. So hopefully I can put on a good show for you. But so I live in London now. Scottish, live in London now. Never used to mention that on stage. But then I used to do a couple of shows in London. I got fairly typecast as a Scottish comedian, right? So then there's like a few people were saying like, right, you should maybe mention it more because you'll have people kind of just like sort of questioning, like scratching their head, thinking, do you know what, I've heard that accent before, but I can't quite place what part of England he's from. So like maybe just like reference it more, address the elephant in the room quite early. So he said maybe compare yourself to like a famous sort of Scottish actor, for example. And I thought, okay, here we go. That's straight off the bat. He's going to say I look like David Tennant, because that always happens for some reason. Everybody thinks I look like David Tennant. I can't even stay at my sister's house in Edinburgh at the festival last year without my kind of 4-year-old niece saying, Uncle Richard, as she points to like a pull-out from the Sunday newspaper, which is David Tennant on it. And I'm kind of thinking, if I shove her over now, will she still remember this when she's fully grown? Will that be fine? I'm not sure. But anyway, I said to this guy, I was like, David Tennant, is that the Scottish actor you're referring to? And he said, nah, you're a bit like somebody from Trainspotting, actually. And I thought, well, that's pretty stereotypical. I'm not overly happy with that, but you know what, I'll take it. Ewan McGregor, he's a handsome man, no issues. He said, not really Trainspotting, he's like Trainspotting if it was about actually watching trains. He's like, you look like a key role in that film, mate, to be honest. So I'd love to say that person that gave me the feedback didn't amount to much, but they sold out their Glasgow show at the garage, and I've sold out their entire 40-date UK tour. So yes, thanks Vittorio Angeloni, that's cool. Anyway, so basically I was kind of living in London. I kind of think I have to sort of try out a lot of the kind of Scottish material down south. It doesn't go that well, but I think, you know what, if I'm coming up to Scotland to do shows, I think, you know, I've got to practice it in London, and then when I come up it'll be amazing-ish. So when I came up last year to do Edinburgh, I sort of thought, right, I'll practice the stuff in London, and then I'll bring it up to Edinburgh. I'll get a hero's welcome, a bit like if I'm down south and I watch like ITV2, a Braveheart comes on, there's a bit of like I'm crying Iron Brew at that point when that's on, getting all emotional. So I thought, if I come up with the Scottish material, I'll get a hero's welcome, it'll be brilliant. So I got up on stage at the Edinburgh Festival, and I said, right, my first ever gig, sort of massive gig for me. It was like my sort of Hampden, right? Imagine the scene, it was like an old kind of Ladbrokes, right? 20 capacity, sea of people, 17 people. You know, it was like masses of people, and it was still, I say an old Ladbrokes, it still could have been a functioning Ladbrokes. There was still betting slips and stuff. It's a bit of a GDPR nightmare. Loads of stuff still hanging about. I got up on stage and I said, have we got any Scottish people in? And there was just complete silence. Like complete silence from Edinburgh, which to be honest now, thinking Edinburgh Festival, probably no Scottish people go to that anyway. But I thought, right, this is going to be hard work. So I was looking down at my post-it note full of material, which is full of Scottish material. And I was looking down at it, like Rishi Sunak looking at a tax return, just like, I've got no idea what I'm going to do with this. This is going to be an uphill struggle. But I got through it anyway. And it was annoying me, because there was a guy maybe sort of 3 rows back or something. I say 3 rows back, he was like, what, 5 people in each row? Yeah, 3 rows back, that'll do. And I was looking at him and I kept thinking, I really hope he laughs at some point. He looks like he might laugh. He nearly started crying, maybe 50 minutes in when I got to the sad bit. I was like, didn't quite get any emotion from him. I just looked at him and I was like, laugh, cry, do anything. Didn't give me anything for the whole performance. And I got off stage and I said to him afterwards, I was like, look, you could have left at any point. It's a free festival show. Dad, why did you have to do that to me? Absolutely. The most Scottish person I know, and he was sat there just looking at me, kind of eyeballing, like, yeah, good luck with your lifestyle choices, son. Let's see how you get on with this. I said to him afterwards, I was like, why didn't you say anything? I was like, I could have really done with your help there. And he went, I didn't want to heckle you, son. So I was like, all right, thanks, Dad. And by that, like, kind of complete polar opposite, I remember like my first ever gig, right? It was a massive gig for me. Probably my biggest gig to date, actually. It was the 1993 West Linton Primary School Nativity play, right? So West Linton and the Scottish Borders, Had a really key role that day. I'm aware it's Easter Sunday today as well, so mentioning Christmas, that's weird, but I did the show in August, and that's even more weird mentioning Christmas. So, 1993 Nativity play, big role. I was not Jesus, right? They gave that role to a small ginger boy in my class who, looking at him now, I don't think he would have lasted 40 days in the desert. So I think they severely miscast him actually, but I got a big role. I was Christmas tree number 3 that day, right? Painted head to toe in green, which, I mean, it doesn't sound like a big role, but if I can remember correctly, I was like right down the bottom of the programme, so I was technically headlining, I guess. I was kind of outdone. Like, one of my classmates was another Christmas tree. Christmas tree number 1 was actually the big massive Christmas tree that was behind the stage, so really kind of like outshone any of us actually. But I thought, you know what, I'll take this seriously. We've established I'm a Hearts fan, so I had to get painted head to toe in green, which wasn't ideal for me. I was a bit panicking about this, but I thought, everyone's got to start somewhere, right? I'll paint me green, it'll be fine. Like, I'll suffer from art, it'll be grand. So I got painted head to toe in green. I had to put my hands out like this for about 3.5 minutes. Old Christmas Tree got played in the background, and my classmates had to put baubles on each of my fingers, including the baby Jesus, who got up out of his little bed at that point. He got up, put baubles on my fingers, and even some of the reindeer put baubles on my fingers, which was pretty demeaning actually. Thinking about it, I was like, I don't even think there was any Christmas trees in the stables. I don't even know why I was cast as that. They definitely didn't have any reindeer in the stable, so I think they may have just run out of rules as to why they gave me it. But I thought, do you know what, I've done as best as I can there. I stood really still for about 3.5 minutes, so I think I've done the best I possibly could. And I said to my mum and dad after the show, I said, how do you think that went? Like, do you think that was okay? And my dad said, well, how do you think it went, son? And I was like, well, I think I did alright in the circumstances. What do you think, Dad? And he said, well, I'm about to start the car actually, son, so I'll let your mum provide the feedback to you. So he passed that. My mum said, right, well, yeah, I mean, I think we all know that you weren't the best Christmas tree on stage, son, to be honest with you. Like, you know that, don't you? I was like, a bit harsh, like, kick me when I'm down. And she said, all I'm saying, right, is I think your acting was just a little bit wooden. A little bit wooden. And I was crestfallen at this. I was like, what, like, kick me when I'm down. I was like, you asked if I wanted the honest feedback, and I said yes, but let's be honest, you don't give the honest feedback to a 5-year-old, you lie to them. You say the performance was amazing. And she was like, yeah, bit wooden acting, and I was pretty sad. Also really sad during the festival, and I got the biggest laugh out of anything else in the whole set, and that was upsetting. And I said, look, I just want you to know that the whole way through that, I was pining for your attention, right? But I'll log your feedback, because I'm a professional. If I ever branch out to do stand-up comedy, maybe in 30 years' time, maybe I'll mention it on stage, see how you like it then. And she came to my show twice at the Edinburgh Festival last year, and twice I had 2 hecklers at the whole festival, her both times. She stood up and she went, I was only needling you, son, and she got a complete hero as well. She got like a bit like massive cheers and stuff, and everyone was like, way, and stuff like that, applauding her. Gutted. So yeah, that's why she's not at the show tonight. Anyway, so like when I was kind of starting to write this show, I started to do, I think I had my first work in progress towards the end of 2022. I wanted to do a hometown show, so I thought about doing a show in West Linton, but last time I was in West Linton, which was probably when I was about 12 years old, I remember there was a lot of sort of fierce competition for nightlife, right, in a small village in the Scottish borders. The nightlife I remember was there was a cost cutter, and that stayed up until 10 o'clock at night. And at the cost cutter you could rent videos, which I think then went onto DVDs, and I thought there's no way that anyone's going to come out to watch comedy, when like if you can get that, like why would you bother going out at all? So I thought, you know what, I can't do that, I can't compete with the videos and DVDs. At that point actually somebody else stood up and they said, it's actually a co-op now. So I was like, thanks, continuity, I guess that's right. So it was a cost cutter, now it's a co-op, so even more competition apparently. Anyway, I didn't do it in West Linton. I decided to go where my parents live now, which is a small village, again in the Scottish borders, called Cardrona. And the key feature of Cardrona is actually the roundabout which takes you out of Cardrona. So I thought, no competition there, that'll be grand, let's go for it. So I mean, yeah, they had a roundabout, they also had a hotel. Crucially, they didn't have any shops in Cardrona. So I thought, right, all they've got is this village hall where I'm going to do the gig. This will be fine. No other competition, they've got low expectations, perfect. But then before I did the show at Cardrona, I was kind of a bit worried. I kind of thought, right, I need to do a bit of sort of an introduction, like some sort of relevant news to Cardrona, just to get people on board very early doors. And unfortunately, Cardrona doesn't have a football team, so I can't start them off at the start of the show. So I thought, right, what's happened in Cardrona recently, or at any point in the last sort of 10 or 15 years since my parents have lived there, anything I can reference. So I kind of cast my mind back to, I don't know, like sort of 2007 maybe, and I remember there was a really rainy night. The roundabout does feature in the story, by the way, because again, key feature. I thought we'll get them on board. Rainy night, I was walking the next off into the bus stop. Again, another key feature of Cardrona. I remember walking, and it was rainy night, looking down, and there was like the most amount of frogs I'd ever seen in my entire life were crossing this roundabout. And I felt like Edinburgh when I was watching this. I was like, that's incredible. Like, I've never seen so many frogs in my life. So excited. Turned into my ex-girlfriend at the time to try and get a reaction, and she get nothing. And I was like, well, that's a bit of a red flag for me, actually. Like, why is she not mentioning these frogs? I was like, has she seen more? Has she been to some sort of reptile farm? Like, how has she seen more frogs in this? She didn't say anything. She just kept walking. I thought, right, okay, that's for the watching. Weirdly though, she managed to avoid every individual frog, so she was aware of their existence, but just chose not to say anything. So we're like kind of like getting past these frogs, and I think crucially as well, the thing to know about the frogs, where they were travelling, kind of like treble deckering it, right? Some of them were on each other's shoulders, which they were enjoying themselves, let's say, as they were crossing the road. And I thought that's incredible, because I tried to tell that story during the festival last year, and I couldn't get to the end of it because the room across from me were in raptures of laughter at that point at the show across from me, loving it, in stitches, and I got distracted, so I could never remember the end of that story. And I was like, well, they can cross the road, and can I go at it at the same time? I was like, that's incredible. And again, I turned around to my ex-girlfriend at the time, she said nothing. And I thought, like, I can't say anything either, because the frogs were, getting more attention than I was at that point in their relationship. So I was like, right, I'll keep going, but, that was the beginning of the end, really, for that relationship. I dropped her off at the bus stop, and I came back, and I looked down, and it was a scene of complete devastation. I didn't take a heartbeat, but every single frog was dead. Like, completely flattened, had been hit probably by a big van, I guess. I didn't see the murder vehicle, but they were all flattened. It was I imagine the first person that sort of like stumbled on Pompeii. It was probably a similar scene, albeit like with amphibians and like water instead of any sort of preservatives. So I was looking down at all these frogs kind of getting washed away, just like, what we're doing, what can happen? So I tried to I was thinking, I'll maybe kind of phone the RSPCA, I don't know, something like that, the vets, anything. Couldn't get any phone signal in Cardrona, because again, why would you have any if you don't even have any shops? So I had to go back and tell my dad. I was like, loads of frogs have died. And he went, move on. I was like, right, okay. So I thought, right, I need to tell people about this. So I held that story until I did that show in Cardrona, and I opened with that story thinking folk could be like, that was relatable, that's the worst thing that Cardrona's ever seen. Turns out I was the only person that had seen that happening. So it got a similar reaction to, I'd say, 29 of the other 29 performances I've done in reference to the frog story. People are kind of like, that's a weird thing to kind of start with, really, and to get people on board with. And even my sister, who's at the back of the room, she kind of said, I'd probably cut that actually. She was like, I'd probably cut that in the future. And I said, I would cut it, but there's two small references to frogs that are maybe going to happen in the next sort of 40 minutes. So it's maybe worth it just for that small tiny link. So that bit stayed in. Anyway, point of the show, I guess maybe why some of you are here, unless I've sort of dragged you sort of kicking and screaming because I'm related or friends with you. Cuban flag, right? So I went on honeymoon to Cuba in October 2022. Had just got married. Now I'm from a kind of part of Scotland where religion, like, we're not that sort of bothered by it. I mean, I'm aware I'm in Glasgow, so slightly more important here, I guess, on Easter Sunday. It's a little bit, divides people and stuff like that. But I didn't know a lot about religion until kind of I was maybe sort of 7 or 8 on a camping holiday. So it was a religious ceremony, and my first sort of remembrance of religion was family holiday. I was 7 or 8, late Garda, in Italy with my parents and my sisters. We were in a middle caravan, right? To the right of us were a family from the Republic of Ireland, and to the left of us were a family from Northern Ireland, which I saw no issue with whatsoever back then. And I remember my sister came back one day, and she was like really upset, and she said, turns out the families either side of us don't get on a kind of bigotry, religious hatred actually. And my mum and dad, who were just trying to enjoy their, wine and cheese, just like they could back then, they were like, right, okay, pretty heavy news, but what's happened? Can you tell us? She said, well, my friend Megan, probably shouldn't have said her name, but it's fine. Republic of Ireland, there's probably lots of Megans, who knows? My friend Megan, so her family, they're from Republic of Ireland, right? And they're all Catholics. Whereas the family to the other side of us, they don't get on because they're from Northern Ireland and they're all prostitutes. So I learned a lot that day. So we had a prostitute wedding in October 2022. It was lovely. And I remember like in the kind of build up. So we kind of got engaged back in 2018. So you're thinking that's plenty time to plan the honeymoon. So much time to put savings aside, so much time to think that's where we're going to go. We booked the honeymoon 4 days before we went away, which was stressful. So I'm kind of one of these people that, I don't know, likes to avoid stress at all costs. I don't know, turn up to the airport 2.5 hours early, whereas my wife, or soon-to-be wife at that point, is very much a case of just winging it and hoping for the best. So we kind of booked it like sort of 4 days in advance. Now, we both had kind of very different ideas of where we want to go on honeymoon. So I wanted to follow in the footsteps of like sort of great, like sort of cinematic history, like movie and TV, to like LA, because I thought like so many like massive like cultural impacts. Like I've seen like so many great things from there. Like number one, probably the OC, right? So that was my like, back in the day. I was like, you can't get better TV than that. And I thought, like I'm 30, like I'm 35 now, and I thought, I can't go when I'm over 40 because that's a bit weird. Like it's pretty weird now if I go and follow in the footsteps of a TV show that I watched when I was 15. But I was like, if I'm over 40, that's even worse. So I was like, well, can we maybe go to LA? You know, can I go to the beaches and stuff like that? And my wife's TV was like, that's quite a good idea. I had a different idea actually. So I was like, okay, go on. She said, I've always really fancied Cuba. And I thought, it's literally the first time I've ever heard you say it. Like what? Like Cuba? Like what is it about Cuba? And she's like, I've always loved the vibe. And I was like, the vibe? Okay, that's, I mean, again, first time I'm hearing you mentioning the vibe, that's interesting. But I was like, you sure? And she's like, I just really got my heart set on it. And I was like, okay. So then I took out the iPad and sort of did a couple of checks and stuff for Cuba. And I said, it's, I mean, unfortunately, your timing couldn't really be worse because there's some massive hurricanes actually swept through Cuba this week. So, yeah, a lot of the places where, you know, you want to go and see are actually no longer there on account of the hurricane. Which, again, bit of a warning sign, I would say, actually. Are you sure you want to go to Cuba? And she's like, yeah, I mean, it's probably the worst of it. By next week, the worst of it will have passed. So I was like, okay, fine. Right, if you're happy that we spend £5,000 to go to Cuba, which not even a discount, not even a hurricane discount. If you're happy to go, that's absolutely fine. Because I thought, what's £5,000 if you still want to get the wedding over the line? So I was like, no issues, that's grand. So we booked Cuba, right? And I should mention the Cuban flag as well, because I mean we're in a little cellar. I don't want anyone to think I'm going to start a revolution at any point. The Cuban flag that cost me sort of £4.95 on Amazon. I was a little bit scared when I got it because I've never done it myself, but I heard that if you get the Anarchist Cookbook or Mein Kampf or something like that, if you get them from libraries, apparently you're on some sort of government system. So I was concerned that by getting a £4.95 prime Cuban flag, that I was going to be on some sort of system for the rest of my life. But I think 30 gigs into this show, I think I'm fine. So unless something bad happens up the stairs afterwards, it should be grand. I think I've got away with it. But anyway, we got to Cuba, right? And I was a bit first of all, surprised that we actually made it. So I was like, well, that's justification at least. The £5,000 has been well spent in that regard. That we're not dead yet. And then I remember the first kind of warning sign when we got to Cuba. We went on an open top bus. And being a Hearts fan, I'm not used to open top buses. Open top bus around the kind of Havana, and I was sort of looking at the scenery and stuff, and I couldn't help noticing the really sort of low hanging, trees and electrical wires on account of the recent hurricane that had swept through the country. So I was sort of avoiding them like this kind of hair slalom scheme, trying to not get beheaded on day one because that's not good value for money at all. So I thought, right, let's avoid them, and I turned around to my wife and. She was also avoiding them, but not saying them. Kind of like the frog incident when the ex was avoiding the frogs and just not mentioning it. I was like, well, that's a bit of a red flag, actually. But anyway, we're fine. So we survived that bit, and then we kind of got to a couple more. We went to a few more places in Cuba. Again, we had to kind of reroute on account of the hurricane. That wasn't perfect, really, I would say. Went to a few places, and then the idea was maybe sort of 5 days before the end of the honeymoon, we'd go to a nice, relaxing beach resort and kind of chill out and stuff, all inclusive. And I thought that's a great way to end the honeymoon, nice and relaxing. So the plan was just to relax for 5 days. Now, when we got to the place, the hotel, we were met at the reception desk. Guy said to us, he's like, have you congratulations, I've heard you recently got married. And I was like, yeah. Because by that point we'd been 4 other places, and I'm not saying the novelty had worn off, but I was familiar with people saying congratulations. So I was like, yeah, we've done that now. And he said, have you got your wedding certificate? And I said, well, no, because weirdly enough, we actually booked this 4 days before but we went away, which is about 2 days before the wedding. So no, we unfortunately the ink's not even dried yet on that. But I was like, but I can go on my I can go on my Facebook profile. Maybe I'll show you the photos from the wedding day. Is that grand? went on the Facebook profile, and I was forgetting that, like, I don't know, like 10 years ago, like me and my wife were in a kind of it's complicated relationship on Facebook, and then we hadn't yet rekindled to the kind of in a relationship, and it's still not gone to the kind of married bit on Facebook yet. And also, like, weirdly at that point, I was like, my wife hadn't actually changed her surname to Cobb, and I was like, that's the first I knew of it, but it's fine, even though she had signed a document that said she would. Even, I knew it was like 2022, I don't have any issues if you don't change your surname, but you did say you would. And I was like, it's fine. And I was like, that is her, but you know, again, she's not changed it. Are you going to change it? But it's fine. Side note, she hasn't changed it yet. Right, so yeah, like, I was like, well, we've got photos of us, we've got the rings, that's kind of proof, is that fine? And he went, don't worry, I'll trust it, that you're married, it's all good. And he went, because you're recently married, we can offer you some nice kind of discounts. And I thought, that's good. Try and recoup some of the $5 grand on the final week. Maybe $1 a day, would that be fine? I don't know. Anyway, first of all, he said, right, any of our restaurants on site, you can give you a free reservation to any of the restaurants. And I thought, that's lovely, but I thought it was all inclusive, so was that not included anyway? Is that really a perk? And he went, yeah, but you get to the front of the queue, anything you want. So he said, you know, we've got our French cuisine restaurant maybe on site, if you want to book for there. Maybe you want to go for a traditional Cuban restaurant, got a Mexican restaurant, or we've got our Scores Highlight on TripAdvisor, all you can eat buffet. And I sort of spoke to my wife and I was like, well, you know, it's the odds of us coming back to Cuba are pretty slim. So, I mean, I know you love the vibe, but you know, the odds of coming back, quite slim. So I was like, maybe, you know, while we're here, let's just bite the bullet and let's go for a Mexican. Right, so we booked the Mexican restaurant. Turned up to the place for the Mexican restaurant, and weirdly, we got to the front desk and it looked pretty quiet. Because I remember we said to the guy, like, at the desk, he's like, what time do you want to eat? And I said 7. Because, you know, from the UK, 7 is the time to eat dinner, usually. And he said, well, we've got 5:30 or 9 p.m. And I said, that's difficult. So I was like, right, okay, 9 p.m, is that fine? So 9 p.m. we went for. Turned up at 10 to 9, because again, I like to be early for everything. And said, yeah, we've got a table booked for 2. The guy looked at his sheet and he went, surname? I was like, it's Cobb the surname, unless she used Windrum, like, again, not changed her name yet, maybe, is it Windrum? And he went, I can't see any names here. He was looking at a blank bit of paper, so I don't know where he was, like, if it was written in invisible magic pen or something like that. He was looking down at it, just like, again, Rishi Sunak looking at a tax return, just like, don't know what to do here. And he said, I'm really sorry, we were chocolate blocking. Like, he probably didn't say chocolate blocking, it's from Cuba. But anyways, like, we're busy in there, and I looked over his shoulder, and it was very quiet. They looked like they wanted to clean in the kitchen. And I was like, right, I'm not going to get annoyed. I'm going to be calm this week, because that was the whole point of being calm for the final 5 days. And I said, right, can we go anywhere else? Like maybe the French or like Cuban restaurant or anything? And he's like, they're about to shut up, actually. But all you can eat buffet, that's open till 10 p.m. Do you want to go there? And I said, yeah, well, I mean, we have been there every other night of the honeymoon, actually, but yeah, that's fine. So we went back to the all you can eat buffet, and that was fine. So I was a bit like disappointed, because again, it was meant to be a perk that we were getting this, but I thought, you know what, it's fine, move on. Now, the next thing we got offered was a romantic bath, right? That was meant to be a big perk of having been recently married. And the guy at the desk didn't want my wife to know what a romantic bath was. He got a bit embarrassed, went a bit red in the face. He kind of got, like, he was in a little office and he sort of opened the door and kind of ushered her out, actually. And he was like, kind of, yeah, just go in there, like, make sure she was out of earshot behind the pillar or something. And then he shut the door and he said, the romantic bath, right? So what you get, right, is hot bath, lovely. You get some sort of like nice oils in the bath. We'll get some sort of like nice rose petals that we'll put them in there. And then it'll be topped off with a nice ice cold bottle of champagne. And I thought, champagne, that's good. How much retail value do you reckon the champagne's worth? That's good. He's like, do you fancy that bath? And I was like, yeah, that'd be good. I mean, to be honest, didn't, because it was 40 degrees in Cuba, and a hot bath was literally the last thing I could have wanted. But again, champagne, I was like, fine. So he said, what time do you want to have the bath for? And I thought, I don't know, 6 p.m? 6 p.m. tonight, is that okay? He said, 6 p.m, the hot bath will be ready for you. So I was like, perfect. And at that point, he brought my wife back in, and we were like, 6 p.m, grand, right, okay. So I got back at about, again, probably early, 5 to 6, or something like that, just for the bath. Got back to her room, and opened the bathroom door, and it was a complete scene of devastation. Like, I haven't seen many romantic baths in my life, but this definitely looked like the least romantic bath I'd ever seen. All the flowers were dead, some flies were kind of flying about the flowers, the bath was freezing cold, and it looked devastating. I was like, I don't know what I've done to you. So basically, I had to drain the bath, take the flowers out, ping the dead flies off the balcony, went back to reception, and I was like, well, I mean, is it like a traditional Cuban romantic bath? Because it was terrifying. And he went, what time did you get the bath for? And I said, 6 p.m. And he said, that doesn't sound possible. He's like, the cleaners pour the bath and they clock off at 2. He's like, they probably just poured the bath at 2. I was like, that would make sense actually. Yeah, so yeah, didn't have the romantic bath. So the kind of final thing that we got offered as a perk for being married, apart from obviously the love and stuff that you get from being married, was we got offered 10% off a couple's massage at the spa. So we thought, right, that could be the thing that saves the holiday. Let's go for that. That'll be fine. I mean, 10% is a little bit cheap, but again, it's more than we would have if we weren't married. So go for that. So we put that for the final night of the honeymoon. Really excited about it. Had that all to look forward to. Only issue was the day of this massage, right? I kind of forgotten about the time difference. So the massage was, I don't know, like 6 p.m. or something like that. And I'd forgotten about sorry, no, it was mid-afternoon. The massage was then, I'd forgotten about the time difference back in the UK. And my football team, Heart of Midlothian, were playing a pretty crucial Europa Conference League fixture against Fiorentina away in Florence that evening. And I thought, I'd forgotten about that, so I thought I'm just going to check the result before I put my phone away. I shouldn't have, right? Checked the result, half-time, Fiorentina 4, Heart of Midlothian 0. And I thought, that's a crushing blow. I was like, it's going to take a monumental effort in the second half to get over that. So I put my phone away and I was like, I can't let on to my wife that I've just checked the football result because it's going to be written all over my face and I'm not very good at making it seem like I'm fine. So I tried to sort of not mention anything, but I was clearly agitated and I thought at least I'm going to get my money's worth at this massage because I'm pretty stressed right now. So we went along to the spa, got to the massage place and there were kind of 2 beds sort of next to each other, both with their kind of head cut out to put your hole in. Head cut out to put your hole in? Cut that from me. That's a different kind of massage. Anyway, hole cut out to put your head in. There we go. And then, so I thought, right, for the next hour of this massage, I'm going to be really relaxed, going to be in the moment, and this is going to be perfect. Perfect way to end the honeymoon. And that worked really well until I put my head in the hole. And then put my head in the hole, and I instantly got transported back to primary school. From playing Heads Down Thumbs Up. I don't know if anybody played it yet. I just got this like weird bit. I hadn't remembered about Heads Down Thumbs Up for about 30 odd years. I remembered about it because I remember what you had to do for anyone not familiar. Heads Down Thumbs Up, if you played at school. I don't know if you guys still play it, if that's a thing. So you had to sort of put your head on the table, right? And you put your thumbs in the air, and there'd be 3 people in the class who would be the enemies in the class, right? They'd have to put your thumbs down at random, but you wouldn't know who done it. So if you kind of looked up at the end of the, I don't know, minute or whatever it was, and your thumbs were down, you're like, right, who's done this? Who's sniped my thumbs down? So you'd have to look at the lineup of 3, and you'd have to be like, right, who was that? So I remembered one particular fateful day. I just remember the sweatiest hands of all time, put down my thumbs, like really struggled, sort of slid off the thumb, and put my thumbs down, and I was like, I feel sick. I was like, if there's a global pandemic, that's probably how it was going to start. But, so I was like, right, thumbs got put down. I looked up at the lineup, and like back then I was a wee bit like, not like obviously now standing on stage, back then I didn't really like confrontation, so I kind of wanted to get this wrong, because basically if you got the person right, if you looked up at the lineup and said, I think they put my thumbs down, and you got it right, you had to be the thumb sniper, right? So you had to be the centre of attention, which I really wanted to avoid. So I mean, for me, I looked up and I was like, well, I mean, it's quite obvious, because one person's just like that, like kind of looking away. It was a bit like, I don't know if anyone watches Bake Off, but there's a bit when it's like, there's a challenge where you're not meant to know who's done the cake. And then Peru's like looking them in the eyes like this, like, who was it? Who could it have been? Like that. It was kind of like that, and I knew straight away who had put my thumbs down, because it was the person in the middle that was sweating buckets. And I was like, quite obvious. So I wanted to get this wrong, so I looked at the lineup and I was looking for like the driest person there, like the kind of the Prince Andrew of the group that couldn't sweat. Just like, I think they did it. And then the sweaty person, just like this massive smile, probably loads of droplets of sweat coming off their face when they did that. They were like, it was actually me. I was like, who would have guessed? Who knew? So yeah, I got that wrong. So I got to sit down and not partake in the next game, which was thankful. But it reminded me there was another tactic that some people would do if they didn't want to put their sort of hand sweat on you. Some people would kind of roll their jumper sleeves down right over their hands and then sort of press your thumb down like that, like covering the jumper sleeve. And usually it was quite obvious, like you knew who did that as well, because it'd be like, I don't know, one person in the lineup that was wearing a jumper, so it was quite obvious. And the jumper sleeves would be like right down to their ankles as well, so again, it was quite obvious who that was. Now, weirdly, like we played a lot of that game, and I was thinking back, I was like, I don't think anybody in my class went on to be like a professional heads down, thumbs up player, and nobody got a career in forensics. So I think it was kind of wasted. I think the teachers really only did it towards the end of term when they had some heavy marking to do, which back then was probably like how well out of 10 I painted in a tractor or something like that. Or they'd also maybe play it after a staff night out the night before when they were all steaming, thrown up in bins. They'd be like, 7-hour session of heads down, thumbs up, that's fine. So I remembered about that, and then I thought, I got distracted straight away in this massage. I was like, I need to come back to being in the room, need to be present, mindfulness and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, right, relaxing. And at that point, the person doing the massage was like, now we're going to put some rum oil on your back. And I thought, that's good. I mean, my wife probably knows exactly what brand, just from the surface of the rum, because she's such a rum connoisseur, loves the vibe. And then I thought, right, so we're getting alcohol put on her back. And I thought, well, when we came in the room, I was like, I counted at least 6 candles. And I thought, I didn't do well in science in school, but I thought, is there any way that this alcohol could react with those candles and we could go up in flames? I was like, that would be a really rough end to the honeymoon. So I was trying to sort of frantically think, right, what happens if we go on fire? Where's the fire exit? So I was like trying to do like a kind of Jason Bourne with my head down, like, right, I think we came in this way, that way, right, left. And then I thought, if I go outside and it's still 40 degrees outside, so I'm going to get even hotter when I'm on fire. So then I thought, right, trying to map out like the hotel complex, so where's the nearest pool and stuff like that. So I was frantically going through this. And then I thought, I've not told my wife this, and it'd be a bit rude to sort of say, like, sorry, can we pause the massage? I've just got to run through the emergency exits with my wife. So I was sort of trying to telepathically pass on the message in the next bed, just like maybe if I sort of think hard enough, she'll maybe know that I'm trying to plan our escape route. But then I also thought, about 90% of this massage so far, I've been thinking, if Hearts get an early goal at the start of the second half, maybe they can get up to 4-4. It could be a famous night in Florence. Maybe it'd be 5-4 at the end, who knows? So I thought, because I'm thinking of the football, what happens if I inadvertently pass that message on to the next bed? So I was sort of like immediately trying to sort of cut the connection, just like, I hope she doesn't find out. So I got distracted again. I started thinking about like the first time I met my wife. We met each other at a cinema in Leith. I never used to mention which cinema it was, but one of my old managers from the cinema, the View Cinema in Ocean Terminal, she came to my Fringe show and she didn't buy a ticket and she didn't give me any money at the end. So yeah, View Cinema in Ocean Terminal. Yeah, and like we kind of bonded, like when we met each other like sort of 12, 13 years ago or something, bonded over like a love of like kind of, there was this nightclub in Edinburgh called the Hive, which was it's a bit of a golf bar, which I did that bit in Kentish Town in London, and somebody said you can't say golf anymore, it's 2024, so okay, it was an emo bar, right? Cheap drinks and stuff like that, great night out, so we kind of bonded over going to there. We also bonded over a kind of mutual love of celebrity dogs. We used to kind of share like photos of celebrity dogs and stuff to each other. It was a great laugh, and like I remember like she was over in Australia one time, and this chance came up, and by chance I mean I was subscribed to this dog's emails. This email came through and it said, this celebrity dog is coming to do a book signing at Blackwell's bookshop in Edinburgh. So I RSVP'd and I was buzzing. I took half a day from work to go meet this dog, and I was like, this is going to be incredible. I'm going to send a photo through to Sarah, who's in Australia. She's going to be really surprised that I went to these lengths just to send a photo through. So I used to do an impression of this dog, but it got a resounding bad reception anytime I did it. So nobody knew who this dog was. Anyway, it was that dog. The dog with the overbite, Stephen, like that, right? I thought like, it's going to be perfect. Like, well, I mean, as famous dogs go, that's probably the most famous dog that I was aware of at that point. So I was really buzzing to meet this dog, and I did. I actually met the dog there. It was weird because I got there, like, again, went to get the medicine early. I got there roughly 2.5 hours early or something before the sign-in. Tried to get a nice spot, asked the person behind the desk at Blackwell's. I was like, where'd you start queuing? And she's like, for what? I was like, this celebrity dog. Like, and she's like, are dogs in here? And I was like, yeah, the dog's doing a book signing. She's like, how's the dog right now? So anyway, I kind of found this bit of a queue, and I was kind of standing, there was like a few like mums with their kids and stuff like that, and I was the rest of the queue, so it was a bit awkward, but I thought it was fine, because, you know, photo of this dog, it'll be great. So we kind of bonded over that. Now, I remember there was like specifically difficult days to work in the cinema. There was a hard day, there was like a thing called Kids AM, which was like a sort of a Saturday and Sunday. It was like cheap sort of kids films. It was something mindless for like an hour and a half. And usually what would happen is like maybe if like a dad came in with their kid, he'd be sort of stood at the side, and the foyer would just be full of screaming kids, and like the hungover dad just sort of clutching their heads like this. Like, I wish I remembered what my kid was wearing this week. I cannot possibly take the wrong kid home again this week. Like freaking out at the sides. And that would usually be a stressful day, right? But then it wasn't as bad as there was I think a Tuesday or a Thursday, there was something called a senior screening, right? And that was a really difficult day. It was about £4 for a film that was maybe, I think I used to say 65 and above, but because my mum was at the Fringe show, I used to up it. So let's say 75 or over. And what you get like a film, which was usually something with Judi Dench in it, like Best Exotic Marigold Hotel 1, maybe Best Exotic Marigold Hotel 2, if we knew that the people who were coming to that screening had seen the first one, because there was continuity issues. So that would normally be on the screening. They'd also get a cup of tea, and they'd get like a biscuit as well. I remember one night I'd been at the Hive, this nightclub the night before, and also up until about, I don't know, a couple hours before it started. It was a late finish. I remember being really hungover, being the only person at the concession stand that day. And I was just trying not to be sick. I'd spent most of the morning, instead of setting up, I just sat on the freezer behind the concession stand, just trying to sober up. And next minute I just hear this tapping, like and that was the familiar sound of the shutters outside the cinema, somebody trying to get attention. Usually it was a member of staff. So I went to go and let them in. On this day, it couldn't have gone worse. I started opening the shutters. The shutters slowly came up like this. And I got to about here, and I could see the silhouette of two Zimmer frames. And I thought, oh God, it's going to be a bad day, because the lift was out of order, and this is going to be a real struggle. So I was like, oh, that's going to be the worst day ever. So the shutters fully came up, and then I can't describe how many seniors there were. There was at least 6, right? 6 seniors, so many of them, and I was like, right, went back to my concession stand, and 20 minutes later, when they all managed to descend on my desk, they said, what's the film today? What's the senior screening? And I said, I haven't even checked actually, sorry, I'll go and check at my desk. So I went over to the desk, typed it in, and I was like, film's called Buried, something called, like Buried, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds. And they're like, I've never heard of it. I was like, probably, it was like an hour and a half, so it'll be fine. You'll be in and out, you won't even know it's been on. So they're like, okay, couple of tickets to Buried, and a cup of tea and some biscuits. And then when I knew something was going to go wrong, because I could just sort of hear some sort of biscuit shrapnel hitting the foyer, sort of biscuits getting thrown. And I looked up and it was just this 2 seniors just going through this big tray of biscuits. Because what we used to do, we used to hand the biscuits out individually, but then management had to step in and say, a lot of the seniors aren't liking what you're giving them, so let them choose at the end. So we had all the biscuits out, and crucially it looked like we ran out of ginger nut biscuits. So the seniors were throwing all these custard creams and bourbons onto the floor. They're like, where are the ginger nut biscuits? Came up to me and they said, what are you doing, where are they? And I said, I'm really sorry, I'll go and check in the back, just don't hurt me. So I went and checked in the back, and of course I didn't check for biscuits because I was so hungover, so I sat in the freezer again for 5 minutes thinking, hopefully when I come out they'll be gone. And I came back out and there was more of them, descended on my desk, and I was like, oh God, I was like, just please, just again, don't hurt me, are you fine with custard creams, is that okay? And they're like, well, I mean, it's probably too late to get a refund, isn't it? So just what we're going to do, because apparently there was a biscuit tax, so they're like, just give us 2 custard creams and then we'll settle it. So I was like, right, okay, fine. Basically handed them as many as they wanted. Up they went to the film, and next thing I knew that there was an issue was they'd either left at the end of the film an hour and a half later, or they'd left halfway through and just taken a long time to sort of navigate the stairs. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, they descended on my desk again and they said, do you know what that film Buried was about? I said, no, I haven't seen it. And they said, that film that you chose was disgusting. I can't believe you chose that film. As if I had any weight in choosing what films we showed at the cinema, and I wasn't just on minimum wage from that place. Probably less than minimum wage actually if the manager was here, but anyway. I was like, I'm really sorry, what was the film? And she said, that film starts off with Ryan Reynolds and he's buried alive in a box. And for the next hour and a half he's trying to get out of this box. And basically at the end, 5 minutes before the end, his team are trying to rescue him, and they say, we've got you, we can see your location, don't worry, we're going to get you soon. And you can hear this frantic digging, and he's like, oh thank God, I'm never going to take my family for granted again, I'm so happy. And then there's a silence, and he's like, guys, where are you, what's happening? And they're like, really sorry, I've actually got the wrong location. And he dies in a box at the end of that film. So cut to black, end of the film, dead Ryan Reynolds. And I said to the seniors, I was like, yeah, I can see why somebody dying in a box is probably not the film for you, really, not perfect. So I was like, I'm really sorry, what can I do you want a refund? And they're like, can we just take more biscuits? So they took more biscuits and off they went, absolutely fine. And I thought that was the end of it. Until somebody reminded me that I'd worked at the cinema with me. She said, do you know what film we actually showed the following week? We showed 127 hours at the senior screening, which is a film about a guy quite literally getting stuck between a rock and a hard place and having to saw his arm off to get out of there. So luckily I wasn't on that week, so I didn't have to sort of go through that pain. But anyway, like I remember like we'd been out at like somewhere, like I was trying to like by this point take my job seriously after that. So we'd been out. I was maybe like 9 or 10 o'clock at night once. We're out in Edinburgh, and I was on like one of those streets. I can't remember. It was like Frederick Street or Hanover Street in the centre of Edinburgh. And somebody once said to me, well, the F comes before the H, so it's Frederick Street, then Hanover Street. That's how you remember it. And I said, well, I mean, it depends what direction you're walking in, surely. So one of those streets. And I remember like I was walking back from a night out, nice and early, trying to get my 8 hours before the shift the next day. And like I do this like really annoying thing where like, you know, if you're on like a zebra crossing or like a car's letting you across the road, I like a lot of people like myself, they'll do this like silly little run across the road just to sort of make it less inconvenient for whoever is driving the car. So I do this thing like where I'm kind of half wave if I'm on a zebra crossing, and just do this silly little kind of child catcher type run, prancing about, trying to get past, wait for the driver, and the driver usually just goes like, oh my god, look at that guy. So this night, like I was walking back over the zebra crossing again in one of these streets, and I sort of did my silly little wave. I was about 3/4 of the way across the zebra crossing, did my silly little prancing, and then this night was different because I looked up, and the driver wasn't rolling his eyes at me. And I thought, that's weird, that's a weird reaction. In fact, the reaction was very different, because what he did, he just kept driving and went right into me and went like that, right up on the bonnet, flat down on the ground, loads of pain, and I thought, that's quite an unexpected end to the night, really. I wasn't quite expecting that to happen. And then I thought, well, in a way, there's a positive here, because at least I know how those frogs felt back in Cardrona when they got flattened by that car. So I was like, in a way, I feel really close to them now. And I could tell, earlier when I was like saying the fast, if there was any Scottish people, and I could tell there were Scottish people at the side of the road, because basically it was almost two halves, right? There was like a home and away end, I guess. So I could tell there were Scottish people, because one half of the road were really concerned, and they were like, oh my god, he's been hit by a taxi, what's happened? Panicking, running to my aid. And the other half, who I can only presume was the Scottish half, were in stitches, pissing themselves. They're like, one, he's been hit by a taxi, like that. And I was like, oh, this is incredibly embarrassing. So I stood up and I went over to the taxi driver's window and I was like, what happened there? He was like, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, I didn't see you. I was like, well, first of all, thank God, because if you hadn't, you kept driving, I don't know what I've done to you. Anyway, he was like, can I take you anywhere? Like, do you need to go anywhere? Are you okay? Ambulance or like hospital or anything? And I said, well, I mean, no offence mate, but he's taken me about 10 metres down the road from where I really initially wanted to go, and I didn't enjoy that journey very much. So I was like, I think it'll be fine from here, actually, thank you. So let me go, and I kind of walked back to my girlfriend's and my wife's house, and I kind of like I went up to the door. It was just sort of like it was like like a mile down the road or something. So adrenaline got me there because I thought I'm absolutely fine, just a scratch. So I went up to a door and tried to knock like this, and I was like, oh, that's not been like that before. That's weird. What's happened there? So I tried the other hand, and it was like this as well. And I was like, definitely an issue there. So I kind of elbowed the door to get her attention, so she opened the door and she's like, what's happened? And I said, well, don't quote me on this, but I'm fairly confident I've just been hit by a taxi. She's like, oh my god, like what, like can we take you anywhere, what's going to happen? And I was like, it's probably fine, like don't worry, like what I'll do, right, we'll check NHS24 or something like that, and then it'll probably be fine, maybe put a plaster on it or something like that. So I got my phone out and tried to sort of like type NHS24 in, and it's really hard to sort of type with your wrist like that actually. So I was like struggling, so I thought, right, okay, we probably should just call them maybe, like if you could, call them on account of, so she's like, right, okay, right, phoned them, and they said we'll probably come in for like X-rays and stuff like that. Now, this time of night in Edinburgh, so it was again sort of 10 PM on like a Friday or a Saturday or something. I don't want to paint Edinburgh in a bad light, but it's pretty stab happy at that time, on a weekend. So trying to get an ambulance is quite hard. So basically I thought, well, how else can I get to the hospital? The only other way to get to the hospital that time of night was by a taxi, which unsurprisingly didn't really want to take a taxi there again on account of the fact I'd just been hit by one. So I thought pettily, like there was two kind of major taxi companies back then, and I decided, right, this will really upset the other one's profits. I'll phone the other well, I won't, obviously, because my wrist doesn't work. But like, my wife will phone the other taxi company, get them out. And I spent that whole taxi journey just like bitching about that other taxi company. And this taxi driver kind of does a similar thing to how some taxi drivers now kind of badmouth Uber drivers. It's kind of like, yeah, you're not the first person that's been hit on a zebra crossing actually by those guys. I think they actually go out of their way. Like, I mean, I've read some things about it. So it's very offensive to these taxi drivers. And I thought, right, okay, this is weird. But anyway, we got over it and it was fine. Couple of breaks and stuff, all good. Now, from there, I just kind of thought back and was like, right, again, I'm getting distracted. I need to kind of be back with it. maybe hearts have equalised by now. Who knows? Not quite sure what's happening. And then I remember back to like the start of the honeymoon. Like it was like day one when we got to Havana, and like we got there and basically having done, because again we didn't have that much time to research the place on account of the fact we booked it sort of 4 days before we went. It turns out there's a big tipping culture in Cuba, which sort of knew very little about. And you need sort of Cuban pesos. That was like the best way to do it. They accepted sort of pounds, euros, and dollars there as well, but it was quite expensive if you were tipping like £20 here or there. So the idea was to get sort of Cuban pesos. So went over to the cash desk, the sort of travel agent at the hotel on day one, and said, "Can we get some currency?" They said, "Really sorry, the currency bit's closed," which was weird because they were at the same desk where the currency place was, and they just refused to sort of serve us. And they said, "Well, there's a cash point over there if you want to go." So I went over to the cash point, and the screen was totally black, like the end of buried, like completely no activity on the screen whatsoever. So I thought, I'm not getting cash out of there. That's a bit of a nightmare. Don't know what to do. So I was kind of sat sort of scratching my head for a little while, just thinking, right, how are we going to get cash out? This is awkward because we don't want to seem rude and like not tip people. So bit of back and forth between me and my wife, and finally like, a security guard from the front desk came over and he said, "Can I help you guys? Are you okay?" I said, "Well, we're just going to get some sort of local currency out actually, kind of struggling. Anywhere you can advise on the corner?" And he said, and I didn't think this was weird at the time, he said, "What room number are you in?" So I gave him the room number and he said, "I'll be up there in 10 minutes. I thought he's going out of his way. He's probably going to go around the corner to a cash point, take money out, and then give us it. That's going to be lovely. What a guy." And it was only sort of 10 minutes later when there was a knock at the door, opened it, and it was the guy from the front desk. And he kind of looked both ways before entering the door, which is more looking than the taxi driver did actually when I got here. He looked both ways, came in, and he said, "Johnson, like, how much money do you want?" And I thought, oh god, this feels like a drug deal. I was panicking. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm not used to the situation. Taken aback, and I was like, maybe like £50 worth, 50 British pounds worth. Trying to frantically figure out the currency and stuff. I couldn't really figure out the exchange rate and all that. Next minute, he goes in his top pocket, and I thought, he's going to shoot us. I was like, he's going to get a gun, and he's going to shoot us dead on day one of the honeymoon. And I'm going to feel slightly vindicated because I never wanted to come to the country in the first place. But then also, what a waste of £5 grand. So he went to his top pocket, pulled out a massive wad of cash, and I thought, okay, good, it's not a gun. And then he put all this money down on the table and started counting it really quickly. And I was like, I've got no way of verifying this. I'm like, what if we're getting ripped off? So I tried to log onto the hotel Wi-Fi to check the currency conversion. Turns out it was one of those Wi-Fi codes that had like 27 letters and like question marks, exclamation marks and all that. So I was really struggling. He was counting out all this money. I was trying to keep track of it, struggled, and I basically had to just give up. And I was like, right, okay, nightmare. And he said, that'd be £50 please. So I'm not proud of what I did next. What I did next was I just went, fine, and gave him £50. And then he left. And I was like, I feel like I've been ripped off. I was like, I feel like I've been mugged. And I checked and I was like, actually, he's given us a pretty good deal. Then I thought, for the rest of the honeymoon, I felt guilty. I thought, we're going to get arrested, something's going to happen. I'm going to only partially blame my wife for this, because again, like, didn't really want to come to Cuba, but that was the vibe. So I was like, right, we're good, like, this is a nightmare. So we got away from the first hotel, again, went to a few more places, and it was by this point, I remember doing the massage, I was like, well, I've not actually seen the person giving the massage. What happens if it's the guy from the first day, security guy? What if it's him? Doesn't feel like big masculine hands, but you never know. I was like, what happens there? Like, what if we get arrested as soon as we come out of this place? What a massive waste. So I had that to contend to. I was like worried about that. Luckily it wasn't, so all good. It was a bit like the end of Argo, when the guy's like trying to get off the runway, he's like, I'm not going to be happy until we're in the air. It was like that when I found out we were safe. But I was really panicking about that for a while, and it kind of got me thinking, like, I felt guilty about that. I was like, am I ripping off the people of Cuba? I don't quite know. I feel bad. And it kind of got me thinking, like, the guiltiest I've ever felt in my life. And it was probably, I think maybe like 1994, 1995, it was the West London Primary School. It was a shoebox appeal right for Africa. And I don't know if anybody's done a shoebox appeal here, but basically, easy concept. You have to fill a shoebox with products and that'll get taken off to Africa. And the idea was just like, it'll be lovely, nice kind of gifts at Christmas and stuff like that. So I remembered on the morning of the shoebox appeal, I said to my mum, we're about to head out the door. I said, oh mum, by the way, it's the African shoebox appeal today. She said, what? Like, why are you telling us, like, why are you saying this now? Like, you could have given us more warning. I said, look, I'm really sorry, but, you know, you did say my acting was wooden 18 months ago, so, you know, that's maybe the issue. And she was like, right, okay. Filled out every she could find in my shoebox, packed me off to school with it, and I was really happy walking to school with this shoebox. I felt like brilliant, like kind of like how I feel in Tesco, if you know, like you spend like, I don't know, £2.78, and it says, do you want to donate the extra 22p to charity? And I say yes, and I feel really above everyone else for the rest of the day, just thinking, I feel I'm such a nice guy. I felt like that, walking to school with a shoebox, just thinking, a load of other people will have forgotten about this, I'm going to feel amazing. And I did feel amazing until I got to school, and I got into the classroom, put the shoebox down on the desk, and then looked around, and every single person, 22 people or whatever in my class, all had shoeboxes. Some of them even painted their shoeboxes, which I looked again at the brief. Nothing on the brief about painting the shoebox. And like, crucially, this was like before the days of private WhatsApp groups. So I was like, unless it was some sort of like kind of, maybe the people had phoned at each other's houses after 6 p.m. and it was a cheaper rate, maybe that's why, like, how do you arrange this? I also thought, there's no point scoring in this. I was like, you're not going to get extra points for the fact you painted it. It's all about what's inside the shoebox. So my fear kind of heightened when some of my classmates started opening their shoeboxes. First one that got opened was somebody had packed like posh strips and football strips, and I thought we're like 7 or 8 back then. I was like, how are they decluttering football strips? I'm 35 now, and I still got football strips from when I was 7 or 8, and that was before the days of like Marie Kondo was like cleaning everyone's houses. So I was like, that's just a bit weird for me. Again, a bit of a red flag. So I was concerned about this. Now went to another one of my classmates. I don't want to say who it was, but he did play the baby Jesus. He put a tin of Blink's Africa in, which I thought was borderline offensive actually. Not sure about that. And put a tin of Blink's Africa in, and then it slowly got around to me, and I was thinking, please don't ask to see my shoebox. Please don't ask to see my shoebox. Class said, Richard, what have you got in your shoebox? And my mind sort of transported to how this would be received at the other end, and I panicked. I was like, right, I mean, we didn't have much notice, it was a bit like, there was an issue, so I imagined, right, the same truck that took 22 shoeboxes to Africa. I thought it was the same driver that just drove all the way there with 22 shoeboxes. I didn't realise it was Scotland-wide, this initiative. I just thought taking 22 shoeboxes and just driving straight to Africa, maybe taking 6 hours or something. And I expected that. And then I imagined the scene of like offloading the shoeboxes off the truck and stuff at the end. And I thought, again, my only knowledge of Africa back then was kind of like my knowledge of religion. It was pretty slim. The only footage I've seen of Africa were like the slides that had maybe like, 20 people sat around a bonfire. It was always late at night in Africa. And I thought they're going to offload the shoeboxes. Some are going to get really nice stuff, like some are going to start playing with like football, some are going to start running about in a football top, some are going to start having soup. And I just imagined that there'd be maybe 2 shoeboxes left, and there'd maybe be like an elderly statesman that maybe sort of arranged the whole thing. And this kind of small sort of tiny pin-like figure, like not a frog, but that kind of like that iteration of the Muppets Christmas Carol, because that's the only one I'd seen at that point. Little kind of flat cap and kind of little kind of problems walking, like my friend Kirsty in the front row. Anyway, I'll discuss it later. Anyway, so sort of like slowly kind of coughing, kind of going towards this truck with the shoeboxes, and thinking, right, I've not had a great start in life, but whatever's in the shoebox could completely change my life forever. And I just imagined they have 2 boxes, and the elderly statesman say, right, pick one, like it was Deal or No Deal probably, that sort of thing. And they'd kind of weigh up, like thinking, right, my life could change. And then they pick my shoebox. And then they think, right, this is going to be brilliant. And they kind of slowly take it to maybe like away from the crowd, sit cross-legged, because again, we all sat cross-legged back then, I don't know why, but anyway, we all sat cross-legged, so I imagine them facing away from the crowd, opening their shoebox. And all they would have found if they opened the shoebox was a tin of black beans. Which, depending on how long the truck had taken to get there, may or may not be in date, crucially. Also, this is a ring pull, right? The tin that my mum donated. Again, it was my mum, so you were all laughing at her earlier. She was the mastermind behind this whole thing. It wasn't a ring pull, so basically, unless they had a tin opener, there was absolutely no way they were getting inside that. So that was the most guilty I think I've ever felt in my entire life. And that was the end of the massage. And I thought, that's not great. I hope there's not a quiz or anything at the end of this, because I can't remember any of what's happened in the last hour. I've just been freaking out about stuff. My mind's been all over the place. So I was like, right, my wife was like, did you enjoy it? I was like, yeah, great, just don't ask me any questions. Like, perfect, yeah. What an end. And then, like, I remember, like, we got to the desk, it was like the next day, like, the checkout, and he said, was everything fine? How was that? I said, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, we love to stay here. Obviously, there was a bit of the issue with the restaurant. You got the booking wrong. The romantic bath was a bit weird on account of it looking like a crime scene. But 10% off the massage place, that's lovely. And the guy looked at his desk and he went, says that you didn't actually show your marriage certificate, is that right? I said, yeah, because you didn't need to, because again, we came like sort of a couple of days after we got married. He said, because you didn't show your marriage certificate, we can't actually give you 10% off at the couples massage. So that was the end of the honeymoon, and I was pretty upset about that. I kind of made a promise to my wife that I was going to be all nice and kind of calm and relaxed and stuff. I'd sort of apologised for how I was, and then that news came out, and I said, "You utter bastards." And that was in the massage. So I kind of thought, right, that's not gone well. But I think since then, like I was kind of thinking about why I kind of think about like nostalgia and stuff a lot, and kind of why like I struggle to kind of keep in the moment. And I think kind of what probably happened is like sort of after the time I got hit by the taxi, like I thought if I'd hit my head then, that would be a complete end to the story. Like it would have been like no way of kind of passing this on. So what I did after that, I started writing some books. But this isn't promo, by the way. I started writing some books about my life just because I thought some of these stories are like really weird. So I kind of want like people to know about the total daft stories from primary school and all that kind of thing. But what happened is I got distracted and wrote 4. Right, I wrote 4 books. 2 of them are kind of relevant to each other. The rest are kind of, again, I got distracted and started writing about Christmas and all that kind of thing. But then I thought, like, even these daft wee stories, I'm like, nostalgia is great, but we often tend to kind of look back and think of like the great things. It's almost like a grid on Instagram that you're thinking like, these are all my happy moments. But I think tied within that as well is all the kind of weird stuff that's happened and it kind of everything that's maybe kind of made you what you are today. So I think like as well, like, as much as it's great to look back, I think it's really important to try and be a bit more present and in the moment as well. Because I think without the kind of the stuff that's happened, I think like it's kind of if you keep focusing on the past, you're not really going to be able to focus on the future. So I think for me, like I kind of think if I ever have kids one day in the future, I kind of want them to know that sort of like everything's happened in the past. I think it's really important to kind of think back and just think, right, well, we are lucky for where we are, and I think we can't really change the past, anything that's happened, but we can kind of learn from it. So imagine one day if I guess send my kid off to school, I'd sort of say to them, I'd be like, right, whatever anyone says to you, like remember that kind of what's in here is important. And like some people might try and talk you down, like you might have some bad incidents in life, but it's important to remember like the big picture because this has all made you who you are today. And then what I'd say to them would be, make sure you put that in with your 10 beans at the end. And kind of when we got back as well, like obviously like we were kind of thinking about like it was important like one day we might start a family, and I think like not long after we got back I was kind of keen to kind of be a bit more in the moment and sort of thinking less about the past and stuff like that. So 2 weeks after we got back, we kind of got a new member of the family, so I'll just go and get him. So we got a dog called Larry. That's him here, and like he's not quite a celebrity yet. We're still trying to train him up to become a sort of celebrity dog, but yeah, he's not kind of quite at that point yet. But I kind of thought like maybe one day he will be a celebrity, and the issue is as well because he was on my Fringe poster and he was on the poster for this, and still not a celebrity, which I think that reflects badly on both of us. And I thought kind of maybe one day he will become a celebrity. Maybe you'll have sort of 2 friends that meet each other at a cinema and maybe share photos of them. And then they kind of grow to kind of be beyond friends and maybe like go to like a rubbish club night some nights, and maybe you never know, they could end up as in a couple, they could get married and they could go to Cuba and have a really disappointing couple's massage. Anyway, that's the end of the show. I've been Richard Cobb. I just want to say that I hadn't practiced this bit of putting the mic back in when I hold the dog. That bit's going to be seamless, and I was like, that's fine. It's not that it's 3 cameras pointed at me, it's all good. I just wanted to say, like, thanks so much for coming. This is like the final time I'm doing the show. Like, first ever hour that I've done, and I'm just like really amazing that you're all coming here. It's pretty like Easter Sunday. I was like, that's fantastic. So, thanks very much, and yeah, just enjoy the rest of your weekend.